who's on what side. There's treasure hunters here. There's Jesse James fans here. There's One World Government fans over here. There's Gold Standard fans over here. And they're all in the soup mix at the same time, still trying to thrash through this whole thing. And most recently, President Nixon was involved. I shouldn't say most recently, there have been other things, but this is on the tapes that President Nixon made in a conversation he had with one of his Watergate burglars regarding Golden Circle treasures and the recovery of one of them in particular. So this still continues today. You'll find many of the stash sites where there are large stashes. Hey, can you all hear me? Can you all hear me okay? All right. There are many stash locations that you will right now find that they're in the middle of nowhere and there's a federal park all the way around them for a mile. Yeah. Yeah. We were working on a project in Arkansas called Wildcat Bluff. And usually I try to gain permission to a piece of property or whatever before I go hunting on it or looking at it. So I tracked down the ownership. And it was owned by, Wildcat Bluff was owned by a lumber company. Their name I forget. I finally tracked down who owned the lumber company, and it was Lady Bird Johnson. He was saying that Johnson was involved in this. Yeah, Johnson was heavily involved. There are some caves down in Texas where there's supposed to be a massive vault. This is on the eastern end of the LBJ Ranch in Texas, where this is located. You'll find that the government has seized certain areas to be made a national park, or you'll find certain members of government that bought a lot of land around a certain place, and they have armed guards patrolling it. And if you were to go there, you'd get chased out by armed guards, and you say, "What's here? You know, what's to guard? Nothing. This is trees and rocks." And they will chase you away and say, "Just, you know, don't ask any questions. Just get out of here before you get in trouble." These locations exist all over the United States, so there are people in government that are aware of the stashes, their approximate location, and until they have the technology to be able to use electronic equipment to detect exactly where, they're going to sit on these things. They're going to keep anybody else from going after them. And any treasure hunters that get too close to the big ones are run off. The treasure hunters that pursue the little ones, they don't have any problem. Do you have
Any of these been found that you know?
This question always comes up. What's been found? It is alleged that President Nixon found one of the stashes that had like 600 million in it and used part of that gold to start trade relations with China, because the people in Congress didn't want to give him the money to start the trade relations, and he literally went over the head of the Congress by bringing the military in to recover this stash. Therefore, he could use it and say, "Well, I'm not using American taxpayers' monies to start this." There's a lot of allegations. There are allegations that this is part of what got Nixon set up and thrown out of office, is that he overstepped the normal chain of command that he should have followed, and he became a wildcat president, and for this reason was set up with this Watergate thing. There's a lot of allegations, and most of them can be backed up by documents, but nobody wants to listen to those documents. Nobody wants to research it, and the legitimate historians won't touch it. They won't touch it. Did you have a question?
Yes. Have you seen any of the coins that somebody might have found in one of these?
You never know. His question is, have I seen any of the coins that anybody's ever found in one of these? The people that have found caches don't talk. All right?
I'm asking.
I could hand you a gold coin and say this came out of one of the caches or a piece of bullion. How would you know? Right? A year ago, somebody sent me a picture of two people behind a motorhome struggling over a bar of gold that was a foot long, 3 inches by 4 inches. And supposedly I was supposed to go down there and help them look for this cache. The gold bar came out of that. I took some measurements off the size of their muscles extended holding this gold bar, and there was no way that those two guys could hold a 300-pound gold bar between the two of them without every muscle and vein bulging on their arms. And we figured out it was a bar of aluminum. So people try to get away with darn near anything. There's a lot of garbage being published out there about the Knights of the Golden Circle. people claiming to have stashes here or there, know them here or there. People are writing books about things that they know nothing about. And there's a lot of trash information because Knights of the Golden Circle is becoming a popular issue. Now a lot of this I've covered in previous classes, so rather than cover the same thing for the benefit of people that weren't here for the other class, I want to bring them up to date as to where things were. The rest of the time, are there any particular questions that you all have? Because you've been in and out of the different classes I've had. So is there anything I'd like to kind of open up to question and answer to see what particular you want to know. Let me start here.
Does this organization still exist today?
There are descendants of the organization that still have some of the original documents and papers and so forth. They are very low key. Many of them have changed their names. Many of them are members of the Younger family. They're members of the Younger family and the Dalton family and Dolan family and some of the other families that are active treasure hunters. They don't use those names. They've changed their names, but they are pursuing these treasures. Yes.
How many of the large caches do you think exist now? I've heard 8. They're in the billions.
The best estimates we have of today's value of what is still buried out there would come out to $300 billion. It's with a B, $1 billion. And that's not the money that's not the value when it was hidden. That's today's value. Because you can take one 1860s gold $20 piece in uncirculated condition that came right out of the mint, as would be used for payroll, and that coin could be worth $10,000 for one coin. Obviously, it wasn't worth that when it was put into the ground. A case of rifles or a case of guns in serial number order that could be taken out of a cave, 20 guns in perfect condition, wrapped in cosmoline and sealed, would be worth a fortune right now. Back then, it wasn't worth that much. So the amount of money that these things are worth right now is extreme because of antiquity value, also because of the value of the story. Even if you bring out gold bullion from a cave and it can be verified it's part of the story, you can get triple the price for that bullion from collectors that want to have a memorabilia, okay? So the value is way up there. Yeah.
Do you think that the efforts that the government is making to keep detectorists out of or off of government land may be partially backed by the fear that the detectives may be used to find some of these stashes?
Let me put it this way. It's a little bit more it's a little bit more sinister than that. The government has people in various secret departments because they realize what's there. Let me back up. At one point, the members of the Knights of the Golden Circle got together. I mean, the descendants, and they brought together everything that they had. And they had meetings together from the late 40s until most of them until mid-70s. They had these meetings, and the intention of the meetings was to get together and find some way of locating the stashes, digging them up, and using them. All right. A lot of these families found out that they were being watched, they were being followed, and they blame it on the government. I don't know who was following them because nobody was nabbed and tortured and said, "Who do you work for?" All right. So it's alleged that it was government eavesdropping on these family members. They couldn't do much. They couldn't go too many places without somebody following them because there was this fear that they would get together and dig up the stashes. Finally, in frustration, the family said, let's go to the government, offer them the whole ball of wax for 10% finder's fee, tax-free, and the condition that the money doesn't go to the Pentagon because it's blood money.